It's so exciting to see a competition such as this encouraging kids to come together and learn a process and make a big impact on the community. I'm going to walk you through design thinking, a process for innovation. So I think even this term, a process for innovation, is a loaded term, right? Because there is so many different descriptions of innovation, so many different ways a process can be interpreted and used. So I'm going to start off by sharing with you a story of how innovation in a community looks like. Let me go to the next slide here. Okay, so this particular story comes from a far off place in Denmark. So, and it's a small municipal county in Denmark where they had a much higher elderly population because of the migration of people. So they had a much elderly population in the village, in the town. And when people were on their own, the elderly people on their own, they cannot cook for themselves, perhaps they cannot shop for themselves, they had to avail services from the county, right? From the so they would apply in the county asking for help, perhaps with their nutritional needs, of what their medications are, and based on that application, the county would deliver food to their doorsteps 3 times a day, or however many times it is required, and they would have their food in their own comfort of their home, and that was how the program was running. Now, after having run this program for many years, they did a survey in the county, and they saw that, to their surprise, despite a program such as this, they saw that nearly 60% of this population, of the elderly population, were malnourished, were not adequately nourished, and about 20% of them were malnourished. It is surprising, right? They had a good program where they were taking care of their citizens, but unfortunately something is missing. Now, in a typical way, if we were to approach this problem and say that, what is happening here? We are trying to provide all the benefits, people are availing these services, but somehow the impact is not there. So when we look at this problem on the outset and try to solve this problem, we might think solutions such as, oh, let's improve the nutritional quality of the food. Let's bring a food dietitian and make sure the design of the food is good. It's warm, it's better, make sure that people eat it. All those things, right? But remember, the first step in the design thinking process or the engineering design process is to understand the issue in its depth, to really understand the core of the issue. So luckily, this particular team, when they faced this problem, that is what they did. They went to the end users. They went and spoke to these elderly people. They did talk story sessions with them. They went to their households. They looked at how they eat, what are their pain points. And they learned a lot of information. They learned a lot of information, such as they realized that a lot of grandparents, their biggest joy in the day was spending time with their grandkids after school in the evening, right? All of a sudden, if they cannot cook for themselves or shop for themselves, they could not share their food with their grandkids. So many of the elderly chose not to even have that food, despite having those facilities. So they understood a lot more deeper issues just by going and interacting with these elderly people and trying to understand the core of the problem. So they understood all of these things and redesigned the entire service. They said that there is no reason why a food from service from a county should be subpar to a restaurant delivery system. So they went forth and changed the entire program such that the elderly people can actually select the meals that they wanted based on their nutritional needs. They could also get food for their grandkids. They changed the name of the program as well. Earlier, it was the municipal food service. Now, all of a sudden, it changed its brand, the way it looked at, because a lot of elderly people they were very proud, right? They did not want this food service van coming and stopping in front of their house, telling to the entire neighborhood that they cannot take care of themselves anymore. They need help. So all of these inherent little things which are overlooked when we solve the problem has a huge impact on how people use these services. So it's important to understand the issue at its core and then develop the solution for it. Eventually, they had a lot more benefits by launching this program over a span of 6 months. The biggest of them all is when they launched the program, within a week, they had 500% increase in subscription rates. 500%. So all of a sudden, things changed. They won a lot of awards for rolling out such a program. And there are a lot of other subtle things here. They got help from the prominent chefs in the country to design the food, right? To make it much more appealing, to make sure that the elderly can enjoy their food together sometimes. So all of those things were done. And the core essence of this all was diving deeper, speaking to the actual end users and understanding the issues really well and then solving them, right? So that's what they did eventually. They redesigned a bunch of programs, and the impact of it was much, much more massive. Now, remember when we first saw the program at its surface level, where we saw that there were 60% inadequately nourished and 20% malnourished people? Imagine just going ahead and saying that, let me change the nutritional value of this food and rolling out that program. You would still have some benefits. It may be 10%, it may be 20%. But if you were to dive deeper to understand the real problem and solve it, you would get a benefit such as high as 500%, right? That's why it is important to follow a process, address each one of those steps, and continue to build upon those solutions. So let me see here. So fundamentally, it is about making things that people want, right? Look at closely these two set of words. One is about making people want things. The other one is making things that people want. So it's always better to make things that people want rather than creating something and asking people to adapt it. So that's the core of these processes, making sure that we are developing human-centric processes, which are required by people, which people want them, right? So, okay, so you are going to walk through an engineering design process. A process is extremely powerful. Now, that is one story that I shared about innovation, right? How they made such a big difference in the community. Now, how do you make sure that each and every project creates such an outcome? How do you make sure that you can deliver innovation such as this regularly, every day, on every project, with every team? That is where the process comes into picture. And process is not like a magic solution that immediately you will get the results. You'll have to work on it, you have to adapt, you have to develop your skill sets on it. And this is a great opportunity for you to work with the process, but also with a group of people, right? So that you can together build your skill sets in a process. So let me illustrate some of the advantages of the process. Sometimes we think that, oh, this is an innovative product, this is an innovative service. Somebody just was running, having a shower or gardening, and they came up with an idea and created a solution, right? Sometimes we have this illusion that that's how things work, but that cannot be further away from truth. The truth is, most often people take a sequence of steps to arrive at a good solution. Now, the good part about creating sequence of steps to arrive at innovative solution is that now you can get help from other people with other expertise, people with different opinions than your own, people, your team members. They all can contribute to different steps. You can all work together on different steps, and there are many tools to do that as well. In the end, that way you would be assured to get a result which people want to use, not just that what you wanted, but the end user wanted, right? That's the power of process. So using these kinds of processes, thousands and thousands of products and solutions have been rolled out, which is changing lives of people all across the world in small and large communities, right? So let's look at what this process is. So I mentioned that it is a design thinking process, and it correlates very well with the engineering design process. It's just a different way of looking at it, where you stress the user-centric part of it even further. So it has just 5 steps. We will go through each one of these steps briefly, and also correlate it to the engineering design process. And I will just briefly talk about 2 of these mindsets, just to be mindful about the time as well here. So empathy, right? Empathize is all about going to the end user or other stakeholders and trying to understand the issue from their point of view. How do you do it? Asking a lot of questions, observing without judgment, immersing in those experiences and understanding the issue. Like, for example, today, Christian and Doug talked about from their point of view, the expert advice, right? All the things that they're going through, all of that is a myriad of information, so much information. Now imagine going to a store and speaking to a auntie who is managing the store, right? Talk story with her. She might come up with a lot of different issues from her point of view, right? All of that is information that you can gather to frame your problem statement and understand the issue better. So that is about empathy part. So the fundamentals of it is the first step of the engineering design process, which is about understanding the issue. The next step is about defining your problem statement. Imagine you have 4 people in the team and all of them are thinking about a different problem trying to solve. Just a bit of a change in words, but you are trying to solve a different problem. That is not so good, right? So you all want to be on the same page, going towards the same goal. So you want to describe a problem statement really well. So it might involve a user, it might involve what do they need and why do they need it. So once you have that a well-defined statement, it makes it so much easier to attack that problem. So that's about defining a problem statement. The third step is about ideation. So you now have a problem, you want to solve that problem. And the best way to solve a problem is to have a lot of ideas to address them. If you have one idea, you have only one idea to choose from. But imagine having 20 ideas, 30 ideas, or 50 or 100 ideas. Now, all of a sudden, there is a very, very high chance that a handful of those ideas are radically good. They are very good, which you can take it forward. This one of the tools for ideation, very powerful tool, is a brainstorming, right? As a group of people, you are building upon each other's ideas, generating more and more ideas so you can have quality ideas to roll out and test. Let's go to the next step, which is about prototyping. So you have these ideas, you're taking some of those ideas and building them very crudely sometimes, right? You want to test those ideas. So you are creating crude prototypes so that you are designing, testing these ideas. You might be going back to the stores, speaking to the auntie there, showing these new solutions, and she might tell, oh, actually this works good, this doesn't work good. All of that is very, very useful. The next step in the process is about testing, right? This is nothing but test and evaluate in the engineering design process. So you are going back to the user and testing out different aspects of the solution. And if there is anything amiss, it's very easy. You can fix it, right? You can change it without rolling it out. More importantly, all of these steps are iterative. It is not that you go through these steps once and you have a solution which works right away, right? Remember, Doug mentioned about the critical part of all of this is going through a sequence of successes and failures and prevailing through it, right? It's the same thing with these processes as well. You are iterating through them. As you test it, you will learn more and you can refine your solution. The key thing is not to let go. You just keep going at it, right? You don't give up. You just keep refining your solutions because you get feedback from the people, you are connected to them, you will get those feedbacks. And it's about modifying and improving. Now, I also mentioned that there are many different kinds of process, but one of the key things in all of this process to make sure that they work well is the mindsets on how you think about the world, how you think about solving problems and locating problems and solving them, right? I won't go through all of them, but I will pick 2 of these just to dive a bit more deeper. One is human-centric. It's about being all your solutions, your world, you look at it from the user-centric point of view. You prioritize the user. That's one. The second one is about radical collaboration. It's about working with a lot of people and making a difference that way. Let me pick on the human-centered part first. So one of the personalities who popularized design thinking at Stanford in the 80s is David Kelley. So one of his statements is very interesting. He says that make the human element as important as the technical and business element. What does this mean? It's a profound statement. It's very important in any kind of an innovative setup. So let me talk about it a bit, okay? So for any kind of an innovative solution or a service to be rolled out, it needs 3 things. It has to have 3 things that should work for it. One is that it should be feasible. That means that be it by engineering or some science, it should be a feasible thing. If I say that, I have an idea for teleporting you from here to India in 2 minutes, right? A lot of people would want it. It would make great business sense, but it is not feasible, right? You want to make sure that it is feasible. So that's one part. The next one is it should be viable, right? That means that if I create a fantastic solution, but it costs $100 million for one piece, right? It is not viable. People may want it. It is technically feasible, but you may not be able to cater it to the end user. The third piece is that people should want it. So let's say that we have a fantastic technical solution. It is viable, but people don't want it, right? Because they don't need it. So no matter, even if you miss one of these things, it doesn't become innovative. It's harder to get there. The good part is the process allows you to iterate and get to the center of these three lenses of feasibility, desirability, and viability, right? Another way of looking at it is like innovation sits upon this three-legged chair with desirability, feasibility, and viability. Even if one of them is weaker, it doesn't hold up. So you want to work on all three of that things. Just a quick question here. Which one do you think is the most important thing of all the three, which we often ignore? So I'll give you the answer in the interest of time. The main reason why many solutions, many companies close shop is because they created products or services which nobody wanted. Single most reason, right? It's not because their technology did not work. It's not because they did not have the money to make it happen. It's because they created something which nobody wanted. And by the time they figured out, they ran out of money, right? That's the biggest cause. So that makes it that this understanding the problem from the user point of view and creating things for them is the most critical step in any kind of a solution hunting or solution finding. So that's about human-centered, the reason why we want to be human-centered. Let's look at the second mindset. It's about collaboration, right? A radical collaboration in a way. If you think about the wicked problems that we talked about earlier in the talk session, right? Challenging problems, wicked problems. Wicked problems are things which cannot be solved by a single person. It cannot be solved by a single discipline either. It needs a lot of different varieties of people with a lot of different skill sets. But the key thing is not just having those skill sets, right? You should have a process and a method to work with each other. If I say, oh, my Kung Fu is better, and you say that your karate is better, how are we going to work together, right? The mathematician is going to think one way, the engineer is going to think one way. So we want a method and a process where people can build on each other's ideas, bring the best of their discipline, and solve the problem. And that is where collaboration becomes important. The second part is if you have a collaborator or a team member who is exactly thinks like you don't get diversity in ideas, right? You want people who think differently than yours, who may have different experiences, who might have different domain expertise, right? They can bring different contributions, but you also should be willing to listen to that and build on each other's ideas. I don't know if you have heard about this fairy tale, which uh, emerges from different civilizations. Actually, it is about blind man feeling an elephant, right? I know from India there is fables about this one, but the interesting part about this is that the story goes this way. There are 6 blind men who are born blind in a village, and they hear a news about an elephant coming their way, elephant coming to the village. So they are super excited because they've only heard about elephant. They don't know what it feels like, what it looks like. Of course, they are blind, and they're all excited. They go and wait in the morning for the elephant to come, and they all feel the elephant from different directions. And they all have a different perspective, right? The person who touches the tail thinks that it is a long, like feels like a snake, like a slithery thing. The person who touches the tusk thinks that it is hard and sharp thing. The person who touches the ear thinks that it is a flappy stuff. So everyone has a different opinion, and they have a conflict saying that no, elephant feels like this, elephant feels like this. And then finally, there is a wise man who goes around, and they go to him and say, who among us is right? All of us have a different experience of this world, but who among us is right? So the wise man says that all of you are right and wrong at the same time, right? You are all right, but you're also wrong. So it is many times we look at the world and we believe that our own experience are the only true ones. But that is not the case. Many times you would want to let go of your opinion and listen to the other person's opinion and build on that, so that you can together create the ultimate truth, right? So that you can bring in all their feedback. So as you go through these team exercises and challenges in the next 10 weeks, you will have a lot of occasions like this. You would look at the problem in one way, your teammate or some other expert might look at it in a different way. Be open to it. Bring in all of those things that you learn and build the solution from there. Now, there are many other mindsets and many other tools, but the critical thing is to work together, develop your skill sets, develop your comfort with the design process, and make an impact in the world as you develop those skill sets. So that's my talk, the small session. Thanks again for the opportunity. And when the lockdown or when the pandemic is under control, I urge you to come visit us at Oahu. Just let us know, and we have office tours. We would be happy to host you, look at our solutions and the work that we do.